Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Just a heads up, everyone, that my new book, Lessons in Gratitude, a memoir on race, the arts, and mental health, published by the University of Michigan Press, is now available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. I encourage you to check it out. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Marvin Curtis, who serves as the board president of the South Bend Symphony. Marvin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, and good to see you.
Well, so it's great to see you, and I have had the honor, lucky enough to be able to see the work that you've done, leadership work that you've done, both in South Bend and nationally, and especially as it relates to overall DEI work, leadership in the art space in communities, and of course also investigating and unearthing amazing stories of incredible leaders. Especially African American leaders in classical music throughout history. So I am excited to be able to talk to you, and thought I would just actually start right off. The South Bend Symphony is one of our great co-creative partners here at Arts Engines. But when orchestras work and are thinking about DE&I, it was curious because a lot of times people think, oh, do staff do this? What role do board members have? Especially, what role can a board president have in this type of work? So I thought I'd just start there, and I'm curious, how do you think, how do you perceive kind of the role of a board president, especially as it relates to the DEI work of an orchestra?
Well, we started our DEI work right after the death of George Floyd, but it came as a committee within the symphony. So I was asked to head up the DEI committee of the board members. So it was the board members that met. I then called together African American leaders in the South Bend community to come and join in the discussion. And the important part was I had the conductor and I had the executive director at the meeting. And that was very important because they got to hear. And the first question I asked was, what was your experience like as an African American with the symphony? And they got an earful. And so it wasn't secondhand, it was firsthand.
Right.
And it was good and bad. And so they gave the orchestra conductor, Alistair Willis, and our executive director, Justice Zimmerman, a chance to hear directly. And from there, the committee of the board, which I was the chair of, created our EDI statement. And we had input from the conductor as well as from the executive director. And there were two board members on the board as part of this committee. So we created ground up with everybody involved in terms of the leadership of the orchestra. It wasn't separate and then we're going to give this to you. They were there from the very beginning. And I credit Justice with a lot of making sure that we stayed on track. And so within about 6 months, we had created our statement. And the statement was not just a statement. The statement had benchmarks in it, things that we wanted to see happen. And for example, we wanted to increase the diversity on the board in terms of membership. We wanted to see programming changed. And the conductor was there as we discussed all this. So he heard what we wanted to do. And in the end, the statement was passed unanimously by the board with the benchmarks in it, and we began to put those benchmarks to work. So everybody knew from the beginning what we were doing.
I love that, and I especially love how you kind of talk about that, the benchmarks. And do you feel that, well, actually, I'd love to even start a little further back. Do you think that your personal story, your participation in the conversation of talking about why this was important, do you feel like that was pivotal kind of early on?
Yeah, when Justice asked me to head up the committee, it was because I had been working with the symphony for several years, we had helped to create the annual Martin Luther King program that started in 2010. They never had one until I brought it up because I was at the university at the time. And we offered the university as a setting for the concert so they didn't have to rent a space. And involved the university with the symphony. And about 5 years later, our mayor was Mayor Pete at the time, and he offered us the concert hall downtown. So we would do them there. But because it was a Monday night late, our attendance was not as great. And so this became a discussion about how do we make these, how do we enhance these? And then, of course, the death of George Floyd occurred. And so I was already involved. I was on the board as a member, one of the few African-American members. Now we have four, and one Hispanic and one Asian American board member. So we met our benchmark. We're meeting our benchmarks, and so the discussion also was about the use of African American music in concerts. And one of my comments to the conductor was, "I'm Black 12 months out of the year, not just in February or January." And so we began to put these things together, and the conductor and the executive director created this concert called The American Composer, where we featured three works. The whole concert was three works by African-American composers. We did the Negro Folk Symphony of William Dawson. We did another work by a young Black composer whose name just escaped me. And we did the Piano Concerto of Florence Price. And that was the entire program. It was a Masterworks program. It was not a special concert. It was part of the series. And it was called The American Composer. And we used Joseph Horowitz's book on African American music as our basis. So I actually did a 4-week book club online and in person discussing the book to prepare people for the concert. So it was this integrated piece.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And so I want to kind of hopefully help for, a lot of, organizations, people in our audience who are watching are in the midst of or trying to do this different DEI work at their institutions. And you had kind of mentioned this importance of kind of, these guideposts that were really like, okay, help to kind of measure. And just wondering if you could talk a little more about the functionality. Are there certain key things that you would suggest to anyone watching who's doing this work? Here's something that I feel you need to have in this process if you're really going to have successful, sustainable impact for your institution.
If you're going to do this, you need to include the conductor and the executive director from the very beginning. They need to hear the stories. They need to understand the pain of some of this stuff and understand why it's important. And let me just say this, on top of that, the DEI work doesn't just include African-American composers. We do a Dia de los Muertos concert every year, which is the Day of the Dead, which we started. And the symphony got involved with that from the very beginning. I saw a Day of the Dead concert in Texas, brought it back to South Bend. This is our third one coming up this season. And we get 12 to 1,300 people come from the community, and they come to the concert hall because we do it at the concert hall, which is the Morris Performing Arts Center. We do it as a free concert, and we bring in a mariachi opera singer. We bring in a trio of musicians. We use a local Hispanic dance company, and the symphony performs music of living Mexican composers. And so you're bringing in a different community who, for the most part, have never been to the concert hall because why would they come?
Right.
And to make it work better, I'm the host, but my co-host is someone who speaks Spanish. So I speak in English, they translate it, and you can always tell this daughter's reaction to the person that's speaking Spanish. So we make it so that everybody feels comfortable within that space. And the first year we did it, we weren't quite sure how it was going to work. Folks came in droves. Last year's same thing. So you have to do more than just one thing.
Right, absolutely. It's so critically important. And one additional question, there are definitely people, and I'm hearing from some of the organizations that we work with and partner with, and of course everyone who's tuning into the show, where they feel like there's been in recent times some of this backlash to
Mhm.
DEI, or people now wondering either if you've experienced that and or if you have any suggestions for people who may be hearing that or feeling that and feeling like we need to pull back or not do our DEI work anymore.
Well, I've heard that South Bend is not doing that, um, and is in fact because we're doing it, our orchestra has grown in terms of audience size and everything. But I told this to a gentleman who asked me the same question, and I said, "You have to be bold. Civil rights, the civil rights movement was about being bold. People will always be negative, but you have to stand on your ground." The problem we're facing now is that the word DEI has become not a particularly nice word, but it's politics. It's not the work. So I don't care what you name it, but it's the work that has to be done. Uh, I think we need to just stand firm on who we are and what we're doing. The history will show us that there are communities out there who have been neglected for years. And when I hear orchestras pulling back, my first question is it the musicians? Is it the community? Is it the donors? We have an example, and we're going to present this at Sphinx in January, where there's a young man that does a program, and he got pushback last year, and he went and found new donors and increased his audience. So,
Yep,
there's always a way,
absolutely. I
always a way.
agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this is so great. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time, but I always like to ask of all my guests this work that you're doing, and especially the role of a board president, right? It's got to be so exciting. You have the ability to have impact, to really, impact and influence an organization's trajectory, but there must be some tough days. And so, just wondering on days that are most challenging, you as a leader, are there any particular mechanisms or things that you do that kind of help you get past the most challenging days that you have?
I've been very fortunate that I've had almost no challenging days as board president. We have and that's because I make myself present at in the symphony office. The staff knows me. We have these things called Zoom conversations with the orchestra. So they're town halls. So I speak at the town halls. Before a concert starts, I will go out on the stage with Justice and greet the audience. So the symphony sees me. So I'm not a name on a piece of paper. I am a visible, present person who everybody knows. And so when they see me, they know they can ask me any questions. I'll try to do my best to answer. I think that's what's made our situation so unique. The other thing that's unique is that I'm probably one of the few board presidents that's a musician. As you know, most board presidents are lawyers or doctors or business people. I'm an artist, so I understand orchestras, I understand musicians, conductors. So I have a different perspective, and I think that's an important part. But the biggest part, Aaron, I think, is just being present. Um, Most times you see on a program, you see the board president's name somewhere and the board, but you don't see the board. You never see the person. And so by being in the office, stopping by the office, uh, working with the staff on projects, working with the orchestra, talking to the conductor, and greeting the symphony members and telling them how much we appreciate them, which we do, makes a difference. And so that makes it more palatable. So I don't have the other problems that other orchestras may have. Um, the fear of talking to a musician to me is sort of crazy. We're human beings, you know. Um, we're fortunate that our conductor lives in South Bend, and so he's not flying in every quarter. He's here all the time. So if I need to talk to him, and we email each other, or we'll talk by phone. I saw him this morning, um, and so I think that's you. But you have to be in touch with people.
I
So
love, especially about being present. It is truly, truly extraordinary. Marvin Curtis, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for everything you do. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Just a heads up, everyone, that my new book, Lessons in Gratitude, a memoir on race, the arts, and mental health, published by the University of Michigan Press, is now available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. I encourage you to check it out.